Oh, too late. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to
Good
Love and
evening.
Enlightenment.
Good
We
evening.
have with us tonight, Shelly is joining us tonight. We're wrapping, we're not, when we say wrap up, we're saying that in terms of the fact that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but we definitely will be revisiting, and Shelly will be coming back on again, because it's so broad. There's so much to talk about. So we want to thank you again for joining us tonight. And Louis will be joining us shortly as well. Um, I wanted, normally what we try to do is to kind of briefly talk about anything that was posted for the week that either resonated with us or was just an interesting read or video. And again, it doesn't even have to be in Love and Enlightenment. It could be on any platform. But was there anything that touched either one of you all or interested you or was an eye opener this week?
Well, good night, everybody. Cruz and Carlos put up a post, and it's a conversation that has always been hard to have. And it was this handyman that went to the house, and the 16-year-old was there, and she had on a t-shirt and her underwear, and he didn't go in to the house. And the mother was upset because he didn't go in to do any work because the daughter was inappropriately dressed for the handyman and he didn't feel comfortable going in. And so that became a discussion. And so it's one of the things that, for me, it was interesting because generally the response to that was he was right. Don't go in. She should be dressed better. Da 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 da. Right. And I understand, but it's like for me, I understood where the daughter was coming from because she doesn't see him as a rapist. She doesn't see herself as a seducer or a prostitute. I understand where the mother was coming from. She didn't see him as a rapist. He made himself now seem like a rapist because he wouldn't go in. And he now doesn't see himself being safe because somebody else, or maybe him, had an experience that would have turned him into a potential rapist. And so I just thought that that was very, very interesting because a lot of times we don't realize the things that we're afraid of comes from other people's experiences, and it makes it kind of difficult. But not only that, I mean, if we're worried about what she's wearing, then we can't say that what she's wearing isn't a reason for her to get raped. You know what I mean? So it turns into a really big story. But I thought it was interesting to see that, a lot of times our personal views, the ways we was raised, the things that we have created as our guides, our morals, our standards, then becomes our stick to it. And so when something else comes up from somebody else, it's just like that got to be wrong. It was interesting.
Sure. I actually saw it. Good. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Llanos. I actually saw it. I mean, like up in the States, I know that like if you're going to have someone come to the home, they usually say it has to be someone there 18 and above. But he could have been a concerned father himself. You know what I'm saying? Like he wouldn't want that for his daughter as well. So for him, it was like, okay, something is weird. Like this is somebody trying to step me up. So that's how I saw it as. But like when you explain that, it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, it's everybody's perception and everybody's experiences that are going to shape how they see that. But for me, I thought he did the right thing. That's just my personal view.
We're doing posts.
Yeah. How about you, Trina? Was there a post that resonated with you this week or something that you saw on social media?
Yeah, I got something sent to me. A friend of mine sent me a video. It was this young lady. She forgot her wallet in the restaurant. And one of the waiters, he brought the wallet out to her. And when he brought the wallet out to her, she was talking to him like, what do you want? And he was like, well, you're very pretty and I come to bring your wallet. And she was like, what do you want? What kind of job you have? What you to do? You know? And he was being like, well, you know, I just think you're a pretty girl and you left your wallet, so wanted to bring it out to you. It stood out because to me it was a sign of being verbally abusive, how she was talking to him. She was really rude talking down to him. And then the other part was he was accepting it. You know, he was, well, you're pretty and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so does that justify her talking to you with such disrespect, you know? And then eventually she was like, look, you know, you don't make enough money. So I, you know, yeah. So that video stood out. I was trying to post it today, but I didn't know how to do it. So probably tomorrow. Yeah, maybe tomorrow I'll post it.
That's cool. How about you, Louis? Was there anything that you saw in the group or otherwise?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry for being late, of course. Evening blessings and salutations. I did see something on a different group, and it posed a question: does a person's occupation influence your decision when choosing, when dating or choosing a mate? Doesn't matter, right, Shirley?
No,
Because
because you never know where anybody is at any given time. And it's the person's character and their core that really should make the decision. Because I mean, I could be broke today because I haven't gotten to where I need to be, or I don't have the opportunities. But what happens in the next 5 years when everything has come together? Because I mean,
Right.
like, wouldn't
And
it
you're
be
trying to
fair?
you're trying to build a unit. So you know, you got to start even it's at clearly you got to start at the bottom. Well, in most cases, you want to start somewhere. We have a solid foundation, and you need to get to that solid foundation. It takes time to build that, and then grow from there.
Right. It would be the mindset. It would be the mindset for me, not the job set. The mindset
Mhm.
and the character of the person. If your mindset is to do well and to be progressive, and
Mhm.
everything else around about you says that that's what you want to do, the potential for you being a billionaire is already there. You just don't
Right.
have the assets right now.
But you have folks that actually feel that way. You know, you
I
got
do
people
know
that
that.
actually seek that. So you know
I do know that.
that definitely exists.
I'm
Pinky, what
with
you
it.
think about that,
No, it's a person character means more to me than anything else.
Debbie?
I think the younger me um, would have probably thought um, someone's education or someone's profession
Pull at
would
that.
have been important.
Pull at that. Is it because of how some of us were brought up, how we were bred?
Maybe, maybe.
Okay,
You know, I went to college. Most of my friends went to college.
right.
Um, yeah. So,
You're seeking
and most of the people
compatibility
in
of
my
some.
family, on my mom's side, have gone, have degrees. So for me, that would have kind of been like a given, but the sidebar to that is that a lot of my closest friends who have been my friends through the years are not. And they're doing well. You know what I'm saying? So I think maturity taught me that that is not the basis for making a decision about
Right.
who I'd be interested um in, talking to, whatever,
Good
dating,
stuff.
whatever.
Good stuff.
So no. But maturity teaches, well, on my list, integrity is most important to me. So yeah. But again, everybody, I just think it's where you're at in your life. If that's career is a big thing for you or who you're going to be around, you're going to be concerned with that. If material things
Well,
and achieving wealth and all that is important to you, that's what you're going to be, kind of looking at. But that doesn't necessarily determine, somebody could have some top job or make a lot of money and tomorrow the business goes bankrupt. So, and then what do you do then? So, but I think you just learn that with maturity. So that's just
well,
my
there's also you got to create the balance too because if you have that top job, what kind of time you're going to have
for the
to,
relationship.
be able to
Exactly.
Yeah,
celebrate that
and
relationship?
I being like I really trying to be like nice when I say no, character matters only, but that ain't really true. But I don't want to get in details like Debbie did. But No, because when you live a certain lifestyle, you I ain't trying to take care of no grown man. Let me just put it like that. You know what I'm saying? So no,
Pinky, you have to be taken care of, right?
Oh gosh, that's
I
fun.
could take care of myself. I've been taking care of myself all
I
these
didn't
years.
say, I didn't say. So you'd rather be taken care of.
Not really.
Okay.
After you've been independent for so long, yeah, I don't need to be taking care. I was taking care of I was a housewife for years. Do I want to be a housewife again? No, no, So I want to continue what I'm doing. So yeah, but I ain't taking care of no grown man.
You
So
and you're in a unique position because you actually got something solid going on right now. So you want to find. I was referring to compatibility, all that. So you want to find
ex-
somebody on that level. You know what
right.
I mean?
Somebody compatible, that's right.
Exactly.
That able to
Right.
walk together, to grow something, to become something more. I mean,
Right.
I've been where we couldn't eat. I've been there before. I've been where we couldn't pay our bills. We've been
Okay.
there. I ain't trying to
You're
go
trying to
back
go
there.
back. You're trying to go back. No.
Not that I ain't trying to. I just simply ain't going back. I think you
Okay.
just have to make statements in life, and you got to know that certain cycles closed out. I've been there. I've done that. I think I have a master's degree in being broke and trying to figure out life and trying to survive and being in heartaches. I have a doctorate. I'm not trying to go back to them kind of lifestyle. So I could sit on here and say, oh, integrity. Yeah, no. I'm just gonna be honest.
For me,
Louis,
and
yeah,
I
Louis
hear
is
what
like,
you're
I
saying, and I
know,
Louis
do
is like,
understand.
yeah, no, like we get Pinky to be honest.
and that's good. And that's what I wanted. Remember, she said, "I'm not gonna go into details." That went out the window. But that's good. That's good. That's good. That's what we wanted.
I feel like I just gotta be honest. You know what I'm
As you
saying?
should, as you should, as you should. I
Sure.
was told a long time ago, though. I remember this. I'll never forget. This is back in 88, 89. A cousin of mine's in New York. Shout out to Arnold Mulgrave. Um, he said, Lou, he said, sometimes in life you got to regress to progress. Told me that a long time ago. So it's like sometimes you got to step back, regroup, see what's going on, build, and then come forward.
Oh, been there, done that.
That's important.
Patricia said, at this age, you need someone who is willing to add to you.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
To compliment you, right?
compliment you. Correct.
You
Correct.
know, you don't want to, as a female or a male, you don't really want to be carrying around no heavy bags. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be carrying all this weight, because when you carry a lot of weight, it's gonna weigh you down.
True.
So
True.
nah, I just was being nice. We just
But
move
I wasn't just
Like,
being nice. I'm
you
serious
kinda
about it.
quiet.
Huh?
I wasn't
said-
just being nice. I'm serious about it, though. You know
I,
what I mean?
I,
And I know, I understand what you're saying, but I don't need to be taken care of for real. My table is set. Anybody
Right.
that comes is going to add to the table. If they can't add to the table, we're not going to have a relationship. So it's not going to be me with anybody else, not based on their character. You know what I mean? And I guess that's
Yeah.
where it comes from. And starting to feel like we need to have somebody and all the rest of it. If somebody shows up and that person has if my table placement is blue and they come and theirs is green and it sets up, you know what I mean? My tables is already set. And
Guess what's
so
gonna happen?
their character will say, first of all, that they would see that my table is set in blue and not bring uh, neon orange, because I don't think they go together. You know what I mean?
But,
And say, there, you put it on the table, because now I know now.
Yeah.
but you bring green, no, you got yellow. It's blended now.
Yeah, no man, come on, like no man, we
um,
work too hard to get to this state. I know,
Agreed.
I was sitting down thinking, me, Debbie and Shelly is Deb's sisters. I was thinking, I was like, I should find a picture and post it of us, but then Debbie gonna kill me.
oh, I glad.
Shelly, should I find a picture and post it? Two to
Listen,
one?
I don't even remember what those pictures look like.
I have
Pinky
some.
talking like she don't gotta look too hard. Pinky talking like she got this thing
Yes,
right
you
here
don't.
ready.
No, I
You
do.
don't.
Ready.
And I have them.
I have
pretty
them
close
right
too,
there.
but don't even.
See, Shelly, she's spoiling it.
Yeah.
But we work hard to get here.
Latrina, you can go right ahead and post your debutante pictures, and if Shelly wants, you can post hers. Just make sure
I
I
don't have a
name you.
problem with it. It's a good reflection of where I was to where I am.
So
Yeah.
what are we talking about tonight? We have
Okay.
Just
some
that, where
questions.
you are and where
Yes.
you would be.
Well,
We wrapping up,
tonight,
DV, she said. Mm-hmm.
right, we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna wrap up, and again, it's not really. I know we said wrap up, but it's not really wrapping up domestic violence because, like I said, it's a broad issue. It really does affect almost. I think it affects everybody somehow. You know someone, or you've been in it. You were raised in it. It affected you somehow because it's such a broad. I don't know how you even say that. It's a broad umbrella. But I also, before we do that, one of the things I wanted to touch on is I know that if people follow on Instagram, there was like this big hoopla about this man that married his goddaughter who just turned 18. He is, I don't know, somewhere between 55 and 61. And there was like a big hoopla about this because of course a lot of people felt like he had groomed her because that's his goddaughter. And then as the story goes along, then you start to find out that he had had relations with her mother several years ago for money or whatever the case may be. So we kind of were having a discussion about that and some other things about age appropriateness and how it could or may not play out in domestic violence or just things that you have to look out for. So we wanted to have Shelly kind of touch on that tonight.
Okay, well,
And your
age appro.
perspective is a little is good because for me personally, certain age gaps just kind of put like a pit in my stomach, right? Um, because I just feel like
What is
it's
that age gap, Debbie?
like in that sense, in for me, when I heard that story, the thing that kind of like was very unsettling for me is number one, it actually wasn't even the age gap that was the most unsettling. The most unsettling was that he's known her since she was a baby, and that, you know, obviously if they got married when she's 18, there was a relationship prior to that. Um, and so for me, it felt like, yeah, like he groomed her or he knew that she, you know, he could have her any kind of way because, you know, based on whatever her life was like or whatever. And I just feel like it, to me, it just didn't sit right in my stomach. Yes, she's grown, she's been through a lot. She might not be the typical 18-year-old. I get all that, but I just feel like, and again, as Shelly will touch on, morally, it just did not sit well with me. Now, somebody who's, you know, 30 and they're talking to somebody who's 60, that doesn't it seems, you know, by that time you've had life, a little bit of life, you know, you've grown, you're matured, you hope. um that doesn't alarm me as much, but that did not sit well with me. So that's just my personal thing.
Right, and that would be the only thing that would cause it to, one, be strange, and two, nearly be illegal, because the age of consent for most places would be older than that, right?
Right.
And the relationship, I mean, and that goes back to, did they live in the same house? Because then he would have been more like a stepfather, right? So that the family relationship, if they had domicile, that would have made it nearly illegal in most states for them to get married, right? Her being 18 now, she can make a choice on her own, but it's the relationship that they had, saying that this is her godfather and an active godfather, that makes
Mhm.
that relationship a little bit off, right? In terms of age gap, that goes down to your personal morals. It really does. But the relationship between them is where the problem would come in. I
Right.
mean, really and truly. And then, a lot of times we mix up chronological age with emotional and age of maturity, right? So somebody could be 60 and operating as an 18-year-old. You know what I mean? And so for them, there's nothing wrong with the behavior because
Right.
that's just where they're at. And,
Right.
we don't look at that a lot. We tend to look at people based on the number age that they have,
Right.
right? Not necessarily the way they behave at their age. And the fact that he's okay with marrying somebody who's 18 and was his goddaughter pretty much tells you that chronological age for him is not the age he's operating at, you
Right.
know? And
Right.
so that therefore, what his perspective is going to be completely different to everybody else, because now he just thinks he's looking after his family because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to have money and look after your family if you can afford to provide for them. So he's doing the right thing, but that's just the basic stage. It doesn't go into all the other things that once we've grown and we've gotten different information that we now start to pay attention to, you
Right.
know, and so it's going to make it very messy for her.
Right.
It's going to make it very messy because as she starts to, even if she's grown up a lot because she's been through a hard life, as she gets older, she's going to gain more information, right? And so she's going to want more. When she starts developing into her own self, is he going to be enough for her if his chronological age is already gone and she's now moving, her age of maturity and her emotional age is moving along with her chronological age?
Right.
Sooner than later, he is not going to be enough for her. And
True.
then that's going to lead to another problem.
True. True. And
I
then
have
I
a
know
question.
I saw. Oh, go ahead, Louis. Go ahead.
She has kids, right? She mentioned
She has
about
a
how
1-year-old daughter.
who's the dad?
I don't.
Is it the
He didn't.
same guy?
No, it's not the
Okay.
same guy. He has two kids that are, I think, like under 10 or under 12. But I know that I saw on another live where someone was like showing a video and he kept alluding to how cute and how sweet her daughter was, and
Oh
that
God.
person was like, what, you know?
Oh God.
Yeah, so it's just, it's muddy waters. That's just, and then the fact that, her mom came out and said a whole bunch of stuff, but these are people that have a lot of stuff going on. But I mean, it doesn't just happen in those kind of situations either. So
Right.
you say what you said too. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I posed a question about that. Is there an age that, and I guess based on what you said, it really depends on how you were raised. It depends on, again, people, like you said, chronologically they might have the age, but they're really as young as that person that they're entertaining. But then there is an abusive factor to it, or
But
control.
even self, let's say you're 30
Mhm.
and you operating as an 18-year-old, there's something definitely wrong with our relationship. The age gaps when you get older is not as significant as younger, but we all was 18 and we all was 20 and 21. And we know we were not mature at those age. Even though we were mature, I was mature for my age. I still wasn't a 30, a 40, a 50-year-old because I didn't have the life experience, you know? And even though you might go through stuff in life. So to me, it's still an advantage when you so old to be with somebody so young. You there is a big advantage there, you know. And is it fair to the young person? I can't say if it's fair or not fair, but what I do know is they're entering into something they have no idea what they're entering into. I could guarantee you at 18, at 20, they're entering into something they have no idea what they enter into. But this older person they have some idea of what is going on and the dynamic between these two relationships because of
You
life experience.
you actually can you hear me?
Yeah.
What's going on
Yeah,
there?
clearly.
You actually posted something with regards to the View, a clip from the View, and each one gave their own perspective on what that is all about. Whoopi Goldberg's was interesting because at the end she was like, you know what, age is just a number. It's really about the emotional attachment. That but
But
yeah,
she also said she won't want to date a teenager.
no, exactly.
Mhm.
And then so this comes now to my question: where's that point where, because Shelley mentioned, that they're Shelley talked about, of course, the same thing with age, the disparity, the difference. But where is it? Where do you determine what's moral or immoral? Where's that cutoff point? In my opinion, you know, you have. Let me start with saying you have certain cultures that actually you have Indian, African, even in some Hispanic cultures where you say that these marriages are somewhat arranged, but these people marry from a young age. Again, we in our culture, we don't we're seeing that looking from the outside as like you said, Pinky, they don't know what they're getting into. But
True.
this is their way of life for quite some time. Go ahead, Deborah.
True. But wasn't it kind of interesting when Shelley told us last night, and you can go ahead and tell us, even though it's changed, what was on the books in the
Right.
Virgin Islands?
Right. So
Yes,
at
Shelley, you want
12, as a female, you could get married if your
here in the
parents
Virgin
signed for you.
Islands.
Right. And at 14, your parents, as a male, you could get married if your parents signed for you. But
But I was
recently,
changed.
yes, Javon
I was
James,
changed.
Senator Javon James put it in so that you have to be 18. So you have to be at the age of consent, you have to be at the age of adulthood to be able to do that. But
But
it was
but
12 and
mentally
14.
still don't have any idea of what life is all about. Is that
Well, no, because I mean,
that's
and
a
it's
matter of
strange.
perspective too, I guess.
But no, not really. Not really. It's not necessarily a matter of perspective because you're not going to give the 12-year-old a license to drive a car. So you
Exactly.
know that at that age they can't do
Right.
anything and they can't be
No, I'm
responsible
referring to
for a
even at
family.
18. I'm talking about even at 18, that level of maturity still is not there.
No.
That's
But
what I'm.
they're expecting you to have a certain level of maturity. And I think they were basing it on I think 18 came in as the age of consent, and this is just my opinion. Because in other countries it's 21 for a reason. Um, I think 18 was the age of consent basically because at that point in time the typical person or resident citizen would have finished with high school, which means you have a certain amount of knowledge at that point because this education system should work enough for you to have some critical and analytical thinking, right? So by the time you graduate and have a high school diploma, you should be good to make some sound decisions. And I think that's where they pretty much, for me, that would make sense as to why they would put it at 18.
Right.
Most of us finish school by 18. Some of us before, some a little after, but generally around that age. So it would make sense because at this point in time, the person is going off to live on their own at 18. Whether you've gone to college or you've gone to trade school, but you're done with school, you're going to work, you're going to do something. You should have the ability to be able to make some sound decisions at 18. So
Right.
18 would be a reasonable age of consent
Right.
for somebody who doesn't have other traumas that keep them in a different place in their life.
True. True. Let me just kind of read. I don't want to gloss over. Jerome, he said, being hurt by an intimate partner or spouse can be a very confusing and traumatizing experience for survivors of domestic abuse. People on the outside may wonder why survivors don't just leave, but abusive or violent relationships are often marked by complex dynamics that make it difficult to get away, which that's kind of alluding to our end conversation. And then he also said, but as well, the age gap has to do with compatibility. If you all like the same things and do the same things, everything will come naturally. Some people will not like it and understand it. But like Pinky says, a 30-year-old gentleman finds understanding with a 20-year-old girl. That does not mean because she's 10 years younger than him, she's not able to be compatible with him. It goes back to how she was raised and how he was raised. And then Lucy
Interesting
also
point.
said, yeah, 1 second. Lucy said, I think it makes a huge difference what the history of the relationship is. If he watches her grow up and was an adult figure in her life, then it is predatory behavior more so than
Right.
than if they just met. And we
Right.
kind of talked about that too. Go ahead, Louis. You were saying something?
Well, that's good to know I'm not a predator because my
Yeah,
wife,
and I
I'm
don't
9 years
know
old.
if
My 9 years old. My wife, my ex-wife, I was 9 years old. I saw
I don't know if
when I met
I
her.
don't know
That's
if
how
when
it was.
I don't know if when I make the statement, I can't remember. I used the analogy from the 30-year-old to the 18-year-old, but I was talking more like a 50-year-old or so to an 18-year-old child. That's the gap I talking about, like 40. I talking about those big gaps. Now, when you get older, it's different. But I talking about that 18, 19, all these stages and the real older, gentlemen. I think it's a matter of it's an individual thing because it's like one of the lady them said and the view, she was like, my son, he ain't able with certain things, and I
Yeah.
know my 22-year-old, she ain't able. If she come bringing a 50-year-old man here, I'm gonna be like, you. And I'd like to welcome everybody, but I'm gonna tell he got to go, and I'm gonna tell her hell no. I'm gonna tell her straight up, it's not gonna happen. And if you do that, and I don't like to interfere in my children in life, but that is one time I have to interfere. There comes a certain time I feel like I have to interfere, and that would be the one time. And if it were my son, oh my gosh, any which one of them, no sir. I'm looking at it from a mother perspective. You know what I'm saying? And I got sons and I got daughters. And it ain't changing. Like if my son were 18 and he bring a 40-year-old woman and say, Mommy, I'm getting married, or 30, no, you're not. Sorry.
She said, no, he's not. Well, guess what? Unless he loves
Exactly.
you a whole lot, you can't do anything about it.
I know, right?
I know, but I
Hey.
still saying no. I still saying no. Yeah.
But that's not your decision.
It isn't
And,
my
and- and
decision.
let me say this, and I don't mean that, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but like Shelly said, 18 is what we consider now is consensual. And obviously, at the issue with that is at 18, if you come to and say he marrying a 5-year-old, she was there before 18. So that's the main issue there.
The whole thing is very traumatizing, to be quite
Yeah.
honest. It's traumatizing me just thinking about my son bringing home. And right now, my son them is 26 and 30, and I still traumatized by the concept. We don't way past that, and I still like no.
Oh God. Nora was asking, I guess when we're talking about the age gap, they have poor boundaries. Where's the father for the child? It tells you a lot about searching for love and acceptance in all the wrong places. There's a lot of dysfunction in that family. So I don't think that there was ever in any of the clips that I saw, there was no discussion of a father that was ever involved in her life. Not even the mother, really. I think the mother has substance abuse issues and wasn't really there. So although she's 18, she probably had to raise herself. And then she has a child that's a year old for someone else that, again, they didn't talk about. So there's a lot going on. So I guess it truly is more not necessarily about the age gap, but like we said, how did the two of them come together? It's kind of alarming. It'd be interesting to see where they'll be in the next 5 years.
But we're not surprised that she come from a background like that and that he picking her up,
Right. True.
But how do we handle pedophilia in America? Like there is no, Shelly, you grab that. I can't.
We don't handle pedophilia in America. We don't
Exactly.
we handle it even less in the Caribbean. I mean, like everybody know the uncle that you don't go by, but nobody ever said anything about it.
Wow.
You know what I mean? We say a lot when it's outside of ourselves, but we don't talk about it when it's in house. You know what I mean? And then unfortunately, when the cases go to court, oh, she was fast, she wasn't doing that, she should have known better than to. It was always gone to the victim blaming. So we don't handle it well. Period. I mean,
So then that's why I say with this sticky situation,
label it.
because we do have this pedophilia, it exists, and it's a problem, but we don't handle it. We don't deal with it.
But we don't talk about sex.
Wow.
Yeah.
We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about who has sex with who. We just talk about the fact that nobody talks about it. That's what we say. What happens in the home stays in the home. What happens in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood. Or don't go down there by yourself. That's usually the line. You ain't supposed to go over there. Don't go by them there. You know what I mean? Them, they got weird people in their family. That's what we do. You know what I mean?
I hear we hear them thing growing up all the time.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, you get older and the people that, you were told don't go down there, and you end up talking to the people that unfortunately had to go because somebody had need sugar or somebody had need flour or you didn't have any place to stay, and, you just ended up having to be there anyway. And then you hear about the things that happened to them and they told, and it's like, oh, you're going to get over it. It happened to all of us. You know what I mean? We
Wow.
don't talk about it. We don't talk about it.
No, it happens. And it happens in family, like Shelley said. It happens. It happens.
Yeah.
But
It,
what justifies the legal age, and then he married her, right?
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Legally, it's fine.
Right.
Right. Right. Wow. That's
Legally.
crazy. Because even when we kind of talked about this, it was kind of interesting. Went like searching for like the age of consent, and I was really surprised. Like I've heard things, but I never actually looked it up. And in I think it was they said it was in Nigeria. The legal age of consent was 11.
11.
I was like, what? And it was
In
like that.
different countries, it's very, very young because remember, they have child brides. In
Right,
certain cultures, they have child brides, which across the planet, we're working very, very hard for, even though it may be cultural and you don't necessarily want to mess with somebody's culture, when you have children dying off because of it, you know what I mean? And their lives are not mattering anymore, that becomes a problem. It really
right,
becomes a problem because that's not a matter of culture at that point. Well, it's a matter of male privilege at that point. It's not all
right,
right.
right, right. Wow. Yeah, that shocked me. And even in some of the states, I think Georgia is one where the age of consent is 16. Um, and there were a couple of states that were like 16 and or 17. Because I guess in my mind, I was assuming most places it would be 18 or older, but it was 16 and 17 in a lot of the
You
states.
said the state of Georgia is 16.
Yes, the age of consent is 16.
Every state is
So
different.
yeah, yeah,
So that's crazy. Because then
And
when you have stuff like that and they start at a younger age, I guess that level of maturity is at a younger age. So in other words, what the in my mind at 16 you're a child, but for them to that's a consensual age to be with
yeah.
someone.
But again, who's
That's
passing these
consensual for
rules
sex,
and
though.
who's passing these laws
Right. So in the Virgin Islands,
and
it's
why?
16 if the person is up to 5 years older.
Mm,
So I guess at 16 they have a mind of probably a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old. Is that
Pretty
what's
much
happening? And then at 20, 25, they have a mind of a 30, 35-year-old.
well, no, I mean, and it goes back to what I was saying before. I mean, like you can't get, well, your insurance costs less when you get to 25, right? Because they're doing it based on the developmental stages. That's what
right.
they're doing it based on.
mm,
True.
which
True.
plays a which plays a big role when it comes to domestic violence, to bring it back around. I mean, it plays a big role when it comes to domestic violence because at what point when you start losing yourself, you stop growing, and that's something that a lot of people don't think about when you get into domestic violence situations, like somebody was talking about, Debbie, that you were reading.
Hmm.
um, Leaving isn't easy because one of the things that takes place is verbal and emotional and psychological abuse, right? If I could get you to stop growing, right? So I get you to stop being you, you cease to exist, there's no development that's taking place. So you leaving is going to be very hard because all the skills that you have are just survival skills, right? And survival outside of a person always seems harder because better the evil we know than the good we don't know. I could manage this, but when I go out now, I have to pay my own bills. I have to do this. I have to do that. And everybody's already isolated me because that's a big part of domestic violence. Isolation and intimidation, manipulation being to the top of the list because it's about power and control. If I can stop you from being you, I am nearly guaranteed to have you stay in an abusive relationship for 40 years. You understand what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
so if you die because I can't get out, but so I'm just waiting for you to die at this point, and I can't kill you because I'm not strong enough. I'm more afraid of the hurt you're going to give me than I can give you until that one day that click just happens and I'm like, well, I gone dead, you gone dead, everybody gone dead today kind of story.
Hmm.
Then the person at that point, they stopped growing, right? They stopped developing strategies to be able to move forward. Something has to trigger off for them to show up again, right, within themselves. And that's what I was talking about in terms of chronological age, emotional, and age of maturity, right? Because we can be mature in certain aspects, I mean, and one of the things that we don't really talk about much is the amount of educated, wealthy people that are in domestic violence relationships. right? Because they function well in business. When they go home, they don't function so well. You know what I mean? Because there they can be themselves. And we tend to be able to, because we just because we're human, we tend to be able to block off a part of ourselves. And so we show up differently for different people, right? The goal, this is a personal thing. I think everybody's goal should be to get that one person in you to show up all the time in all places, right? Which is why I was saying character makes a difference. Because if you are who you are, no matter where you are, you're going to always be that
Sure.
person. If you
Right.
have to pick who you're going to be at work, and abusers do that, right? An abuser is not going to go to their job and because their boss knock over the cup, they ain't gonna knock out the boss, right? Or if the boss talk hard to them, they're not gonna talk back hard to the boss. They're not gonna slap the boss, but they're gonna go home and the person that they have the control over, they're gonna cook fish and they're gonna knock them till Sunday. You know what I mean? But they're choosing when to have that behavior because they have control. And the person who they're beating up has been broken down within themselves already, right? So they stop being themselves now. They're starting to become a reflection of the behavior of the other person, right? And so because they're becoming a reflect, because I know as a counselor, I know many people who, from the time the car door open, right? And they hear the footsteps. They know where all the children need to be, what needs to be done. They're making sure
Wow.
everything is clean, all the rest of it, right? I had one lady a, a long time ago, and she's doing fantastic right now. I'm really, really proud of her, right? We went to court to get a restraining order because she ended up having to go to the hospital because the abuse was that bad. Um, she got a restraining order and she was at work and she went to work. The person, because when you get a restraining order, the person could stay away from you. St. Croix is small, and she worked in a public place, right? So the boss knew that she had a restraining order. This person wasn't supposed to be around her. So what would happen is if the person was supposed to come in, they would move her to another place. He came in a red shirt. No offense to you, Louis. That just happened to be the color, right?
Oh
He
Lord.
came in a red shirt. She froze and started to scream in the building, right? So because we'd already established her safety plan, her boss called me and said, "Why is she screaming?" I said, "Is he wearing a red shirt?" She said, "How do you know?" I'm like, "That's always the shirt that he wears when she's going to get hurt. You need to move him. Move him. Don't move her. Move him, then move her." So, because he has business to conduct, I can't tell them don't conduct business. And so
Right.
that's what happened. But the training, right? The training that takes place that makes you lose who you are as a person. And so now all that you're doing is living in reaction to this kind of abuse. For some people, it's words. They would give you like, and this is gonna sound bad, it's gonna sound bad because I think all of us as parents have done it at one point in time, but when you know better, you do better, right? Our parents used to give us a look, right?
Mhm.
So just so that you understand how that works, our parents used to give us a look if we in the store and we start to act up. It was just a look, right? And we ain't touching nothing. We gonna behave. We ain't even want to walk hard at that point in time because we don't want the backhand in the people and them Woolworth. You know what I mean? It's the same thing that happens with domestic
Said
violence.
Woolworth.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I owe Louis. Come on.
I mean,
So
hey, that's a throwback. I hope people see that, hear that reference.
So you know what I mean? But yeah, but even now in Kmart, you see some children getting that same look, right? And it's because the look is associated with something. In an
Right.
abusive relationship, it could be a color, it could be a word, it could be how they slam the door when they're coming in, it could be the fact that they come in and don't say anything, it could be the fact that they're coming in and they're having a lot of things to say. You have to understand that a lot of people are not able to come out of that programming, that training. It's like the
Right.
slavery, right? It's like
Right.
slavery. The master coming, the master coming, the master coming. You know what I mean? And so you're going to hide, you're going to make sure, yes, master, sir, yes, master. It's the same
Right.
process.
Right.
You know what I mean? But this time it's supposed to be with somebody who claims that they love you. And then that goes to the 50 million billion dollar question. What does love mean?
Right.
you know, because some people actually use the phrase, "Oh, if he don't beat me, he don't love me." Where do you think they got that definition from?
What?
Right? And that's because even as parents, I beaten you because I love you and I want you to do better. We don't understand how the words that we use and the things that we do instill all kind of craziness in us
Right.
that we can't shake. It's
Right.
Yeah.
hard. It's
But
hard
they,
because if you
it's
don't
like
know
Kema
better,
said,
you don't do
it's
better.
like Kema said, Pavla dog, right? They condition you. And it always started here. And it started here because we went in broken somehow for some reason. And sometimes it could just be age, immaturity. What I've been learning too is you start relationships. If we start relationships when we're 14 and 13, this is the issue I have. And there could be successful 18-year-old, 19-year-old in relationship with a 50, 60-year-old. We're not talking about those cases. We're talking about the minds that's manipulative and abusive, right? I remember this pastor, and everybody know, I don't want to mention it because I don't want to get into the back and forth. He would take young men to African countries that was underage, and he was sleeping with them. And that was a problem. But he was going to these countries, and he was a pastor, so it wasn't like it was okay to be sleeping with guys or whatever. But in his individual mind, this country, it was of legal age for him to have relationship with these boys because it was of the legal age. He got in trouble because he's American and he's a pastor and all of that other stuff. But in his mind, they were legal age. So he went to these African countries with these boys, used to take them on trips. He used to attack poor families. That was another thing that I noticed. These were poor people, single moms. They had financial problems. Oh, we're going on a trip to Africa. So what I'm saying is, it's like Lucy said, predatory behavior. This is what we look at, right? Then with abusive relationships, broken young, you could be young, 14 years old. You ain't thinking nothing. You just hanging out with your little boyfriend, but he talking to you too hard. You trying to please, he blah, blah, blah. It starts to break us down. We don't really understand what's going on because we're too young. You can't talk to your parents about it. You really wasn't supposed to be in a relationship in the first place. You can't talk to your peers because they're the same age with you and they don't know no better. So you 14, 15, you in relationships that's not healthy and you have no clue. Then you continues that by going into other relationships. You're still young.
But wait, but let me interrupt you, Pinky. Based on what Shelly's saying, it don't even start with having a relationship at 12 and 14. It starts with your relationship with your parents.
And it could. It could. And that'll be one of them places it'll start. But sometimes it'll also start with relationships. It differs for people.
Yeah, but think about this. Even if you're 14, right? And you fall prey to this in a relationship, right? But you came from a family where you were already beat down. People already said things to you, like she said, I beaten you because I love you and I want the best for you, but I'm beating you and really beating you, right? So now you're in a relationship with somebody you really like, and you're 14, he's 16, whatever the age is, right? And you do something he don't like and he knock you. Because it always starts, it graduates, right?
Graduates.
So it starts with a little thing. There's already a part of you that thinks like, okay, I know that's not really right, but you've already associated somebody loving you and possibly hurting you.
Yeah, but that's another thing because, some people believe all spanking is abuse. Okay, that's another topic.
True.
But there is two types of abuse, and Shelley, you could elaborate on it. There is the conscious one, like I said, you're young, you don't know what you've been into, and you end up in these relationships because you come in broken, right? But then there's the other one where you're preyed upon because people see that you're broken, and you're picked because you're broken. You're not picked because people see your brokenness and they choose you because of that, and they manipulate you mentally. They never hit you. They never touch you. but you are so broken because emotionally they have destroyed you. And a lot of times too, these people come in with their own psychological problems. Nora mentioned it, borderline personality disorder. This the got undiagnosed a lot of times. But these the be issues, and we just see these people and we just say, oh, this, that. I remember my daughter make me read she asked me to read a book when she started college, and it was on borderline personality disorder. I could identify people that I knew in a family. I was like the mother guy. I sit in the son, I sit in the mother, and I sit in the other son. Clear as day from reading that book. You know, these are but we didn't know, they didn't know, but the abuse still happened.
Right.
Shirley.
A lot of times, abuse always happens when somebody is a predator. There is no abuser that's not a predator, ever. Right. And you don't
Even
have
when
to.
you're 14, Shirley?
Well, because if this person's not a predator, then they wouldn't be looking for somebody they can control.
Right.
You understand? Because domestic violence is about power and control.
Right.
It's not about, and strangely enough, Pinky, a lot of times, it is not the person that appears broken, right? That's why the most unreported, maybe undocumented people that are in abusive relationships, and you only hear about them really when they're dead, are the very, very successful, right? Because there's the challenge. You think you are right? You're going to say to everybody, oh, I ain't ever gonna let a man hit me, or I gonna always stand up and do what I want. But it's what we were talking about earlier, and you made mention to it, the mental abuse. If I can start breaking you down in your head so you start doubting yourself, that's all I have to do, right? I just have to figure out a way to get you to say, okay, she gonna doubt herself, because we tend to lie to ourselves. And honestly, it's unfortunate, but image has created so much destruction, right? There's a Ghanaian proverb that says civilization is destroyed because we don't have homes, right? And it's true, because if in your house you're not okay, and that's not your house in terms of just your family, your real house is your head. That's where you are all the time by yourself. You live there 24/7 for your entire life. You're always, so that's your first house, is in your head. If somebody gets up in your head and they start to take over that space in your head, it doesn't make a difference how much you think you're functioning. And we tend to lie to ourselves because we want to pretend, and we think that being weak or not being perfect is a problem. It's not a problem. It's the only way we can get better. And that's one of the things that I really encourage people, especially if they come into my office or even if I talk to them. Pay attention to your weaknesses, because your weakness that you don't acknowledge is the one thing somebody would use to destroy you.
Right.
Which is the reason why you can't get hurt by people who's not close to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If the person isn't somebody that you're close to, you don't get hurt by people who you don't love. You don't get hurt by people who you don't feel that they're a good match for you. You don't get hurt by people that are not connected to you, right? Because you really don't care about the people you're not connected to. So in order for them to be able to hurt you, there has to be a connection. Now, if you're not honest about the fact that, okay, I have a problem with my identity, right? I don't like how I look. Me really like my hair because somebody said something a long time ago and it's stuck in my head. Or, I'm going to try to be this kind of person because, I supposed to be college educated. Everybody that went to school with me got a college degree and me ain't got none. You know what I mean? Everybody live in a big house and I don't have any. And so I feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And it becomes a challenge for me because now I feel like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. That goes to the list, which is why I don't do the list, Debbie, by the way. Just let's go see. Right? And so because of that, the things that we have, because not everybody accomplishes things at the same level, right? And we start to look at how people think we're supposed to be, and we start to take on that, right? So like if you have anything that's a little bit off, I tell people all the time, I'm dyslexic. I'm really good with it. I'm good with the fact that I'm dyslexic,
Me
which
too.
means that it took me a long time to be able to read well, right?
Me
But
too.
I can think fast. But to read it and write it, it used to be a problem. But I understood that I had dyslexia. So what do you think I did? I started working on ways to make sure that it was not a problem. Because somebody calling me stupid when I realized there's a problem, but there was no name for dyslexia back in 1986, or
Right.
1978. It was just like, well, why you just can't read that? You can ask me all the questions, I can answer it, but why you just can't? Well, they didn't know that there was a problem. There's something that wasn't going on right. And so because of that, that tended to be for most people, or you don't do well, or you can't do well. And you take it from there and you grow up. And so every time somebody says you haven't accomplished something, right? So then now what do we do? Haters motivate me.
Mm-hmm.
But that hate is coming from our weakness.
Our
Haters
insecurity.
can't
Right.
motivate me. I have to be all right with myself. I have to know where I'm weak, because a predator will take somebody who's very, very successful because they've done very well at covering up the weakness that they're hiding. And now they will target that. And it's like when you push a pin or a nail and you start chipping at something, it's a little chip and a little chip and a little chip. But that little chip becomes a big crack, and that big crack gets wider. And the
Right.
wider it gets, the more you disappear. So
Right.
you can function well on your job because it's not personal,
Right.
unless your job defines you. Then that's another problem. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But it's finding your own personal weaknesses and
Right.
recognizing them so that nobody else can use them
Them
against you,
against
because
you.
that's where mental abuse starts to take roots and it gets grounded, really, really, really grounded. And then
Mm.
when you add the spiritual abuse to that, on top of that, or you're not supposed to do this and you're supposed to forgive everybody, not realizing that if there's no repentance, there's no need for forgiveness, because if you ain't change your behavior, I don't have a reason to forgive you because you haven't changed your
Or
behavior and you
or
don't
or
want
you
my
can't or
forgiveness.
you can't get divorced because
Right.
you're going to sin or you're going to hell. It's another one. Women are supposed to what women are supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah,
And so because of that, it starts to become, it gets you stuck in the relationship that you're in. One, because we're not okay with not being not okay. We have to be okay with the fact that we're not okay. Because if we
exactly.
don't recognize that we're not okay, we can't be okay.
Okay, right.
I
Right.
confuse you? Sorry.
No, that's true. Because
I
now we
think
want
Janos get confused. My God, slow that down.
to. Let me
think I'm so way past you on that. Trust me. Like, I know you don't got registered for me.
um,
See,
I
I was
claim my
saying.
dys-
Now I was
I
saying,
claim my
coming at me. Why she I was
dyslexia.
saying,
We know it confusing. I tell her I dyslexic. It confused me just now. But go ahead, Shelley.
but
no,
I claim my stuff.
dyslexia has to do with sight, not hearing.
It has to
So
do with both, actually.
Both.
really,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
okay.
it's how what'll happen in the brain.
Me-
I don't yell
So
after Debbie all the time. I don't
well,
be like,
I
you don't
got
give me
something
too
going
much
on because
information.
I can't even figure that out. So I got something
I
going
see.
um,
I don't tell Debbie it's too much. You confusing me. I
I,
done. I gone this
I
way.
do. I do give a lot. I'm learning to do better. Simon is teaching me that. But that's my foster son. Marilyn said most of the time, I just don't want to forget this, and that's why I want to read it. Most of the time, the law protects the woman. What does the man support? What is the man supposed to do when the woman is the abuser?
We talked about that,
The
but I
same
want to hear
thing.
Shelly. Go ahead.
The same thing. The stigma. And it goes back to what I was saying about being perceived as weak. The stigma that's there, the culturally, our stigma against men being in a bad position is really, really bad. I have male clients. There are a lot of male clients. There are a lot of people that are going through stuff. I mean, we have a domestic violence list, and people would be surprised. We have like 6, 7 men on that list. You understand what I'm saying? Because nobody talks about it, but they're being abused. And we know they're being abused. But it looks bad because if they go to the police station and say that somebody hit them, you'd be like, are you let she hit you? Like literally, that's the reaction. And so, of course, now I feel bad on top of feeling bad. So, do you think I'm going to report it? The same
But
services are there for men that are there for women. But the stigma about a man being
Yeah.
abused is so big that they won't come forward, no matter how much information you try to put out. We have PSAs with all men, and it's still hard for men to come out.
But
You know what I
now,
mean? It's still
let's say
hard.
he retaliates now and he puts his hand on her. No, that's a whole lot of story altogether. No, and
It
all the
is.
time he just tried to defend himself.
And it is. And the reason why is because of that stigma. You know what I mean? He's not when he walks away, he's not gonna walk away and go to the police and say, "The man, if this woman hit me one more time, you gonna gotta lock me up, you know." He's gonna wait until it gets to the point where he doesn't feel like he has an option. He's already tired now, and he may hit her back. On the same token, right? There's some men who will hit a woman and she'll never call the police, right? But the first time she hit him, she going to jail. We have a lot of women in jail because of that. Here,
Not sure.
Mm.
you
Mm.
understand what I'm saying? Because it's like, oh, yeah, no, 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 she hit me. And then, of course, now at this point in time, the women as the aggressor. And the stigma, oh, nobody to do nothing for the men, nobody to do nothing for the men, nobody to do nothing for the men. Now there's that nearly feels like there's a need to make an example of every woman that then fights back. You know
Do
what I
you
Mm.
have
mean?
any? Do you have any information, or do you guys work with the men's coalition? I mean, are they
Yeah.
the? You guys work with them?
Mm-hmm. Because you have the batterer intervention program, which is what the men's coalition does. There has to be a balance. You understand what I'm saying? They had to learn the behavior for some from somewhere, and so in order to figure it out, we have to work together. You know what I mean?
And do
Because
you?
the whole,
And
I know a lot of people there, they think the whole purpose of the women's coalition is to break up families. That's not the purpose of the coalition.
yeah,
We
that's
don't go to anybody's house, so we don't have any idea what's going on in your house unless somebody
right.
tells us,
They
first of
come
all.
to you, right?
Exactly. We don't, it has to come to us in order for us to know, right? But it's the purpose isn't to break up the families, for y'all to stop hurting each other. That's just it. I know I don't tell anybody to leave their partner. I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem healthy based on what you're telling me. Do your pros and cons list and then decide whether or not you need to stay or go.
Right.
And if you don't have the skills, let me give you the skills for you to be self sufficient so that you have more information to decide whether you want to
But
stay or go.
haven't you seen cases where you're like, look, you really got to leave. This ain't working out. Have you seen cases like that where it's just you had
When
to
I was up
actually,
in the emergency room and she was in ICU, yeah, that was
and
the
it was
time for
like
her to leave,
to leave. You were
right?
just like, yeah, you gotta go.
I didn't tell her that then either. In my
Really?
head, I was like, you need to get out of this relationship. But I can't tell her that, Louis.
She got
I
to see it for
can't tell
herself.
anybody to leave the
They got to
person
see it
that
for
they're with.
themselves. They got to see it
They
for
have to
themselves.
see it because even after she was in the ICU and mesh up my good silk shirt, right? Literally,
Wow.
when she was better, she went back because she wasn't ready. And I can't be mad at her for that.
Right.
You know what
Well,
I mean?
Debbie
last
talked
year,
about that in the
yeah,
last
last
show.
year when we talked with Kanuma, she expressed that it usually takes someone
One of
seven
Debbie or
Seven.
Kanuma.
major times to leave before they finally leave
I thought it was Debbie.
for
Okay.
many reasons. So
Right.
actually,
And Jerome
right,
mentioned that earlier,
yeah, he did.
in his comments. Uh, you, uh, Tariq, that's your
Yeah,
cousin.
that's my cousin.
Did I
Uh-huh.
say it right?
Yeah, Tariq.
Wow. Okay. Well, I got it right. He was asking if beating, if that'll develop abusers, because some people feel like if they don't beat, like beating is a way of expressing love. Like that's what he put, right? Yeah.
At what point?
Could that develop abusers? Because some abusers truly feel they're showing love by beating them.
We just had that conversation though, because and they get that behavior pattern from when you get beat as you small. I beating you because I love you and I want you to straighten out. So you associate pain with love, and it kind of follows through. It's not necessary though. You know what I mean? And it never really starts with you getting hit. A lot of people, if you get in a relationship, you meet somebody for the first time and they slap you. What is the likelihood of you getting in a relationship with that person? You know what I mean? Like
Spot that
nobody,
up.
even if they associate love with pain, they're not going to get into a relationship with somebody that slapped them. Physical abuse, whether it be sexual, because I mean, people get raped in relationships, whether it be sexual abuse or it be physical abuse, that's the last thing, right? That's because all the other stuff hasn't worked, right? And so, in order for me to instill the fear and have the fear be real so that the control is even more in place, that's the end result. You know what I mean? But the thought or the concept of pain, and which is one of the reasons why child abuse is such a thing, because anything that inflicts pain that becomes associated with love is going to mess you up for the rest of your life until you unlearn it, right?
Right.
And sometimes this
Or
is a hard conversation
control,
too.
we don't think of control because control is not fit, but when you cannot freely live your life in any way, that is also abuse. When you feel when another person gets to control your decisions and everything you do, or you feel like you have to make decisions to make somebody else happy all the time and do what they want, these are all forms of abuse. We don't see it because it seems small. It doesn't
The
seem like
hidden
the blows,
scars.
or fear, right? Fear,
The
fear
hidden
to speak.
scars.
Yeah, fear to speak your mind, fear to have an opinion. You know, this is I don't call them little. I'll call them the intangibles because we tend to see tangible things easily, but the intangible things we tend to push aside. You know,
Right.
but these are all things that we have to. That's why you were saying that we have to embrace and stand up in who we are, the bad or the good. Because if we don't, this is how they get a foot in on us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But go ahead, Shelly. Sorry. I
No,
Thank you.
just
Louis was going to say something.
I just
oh.
want to speak if she feel cold.
Today was so windy. Like I was so cold today. I got a t-shirt underneath this. I was feeling
So, but
cold.
it's starting to get a little cool up there, right?
It was 73 degrees.
Well, that's nice, man, man. Yeah, man.
It was
Oh God.
my daughter opened it. I was like, it's so cold, it's so cold. What's the
Really?
temperature outside? my air condition went down to like 69, but I don't sleep with it down low, right? But okay, so when
There
it's
you have it.
69 and then it's outside cool, it'll make the house cool because cold air that don't move all fast. But anyway, I was like, it's cold. Make sure you got a jacket. And then she opened the door and leaves were coming in the house. It was like, mommy, it's hot outside.
Oh my God. Let me ask a question because we're coming down to the wire, right? If someone is in a domestic, I'm kind of like crescendoing. If someone is in a domestic violence situation, dating, marriage, whatever, parental, whatever the situation is, the relationship is, and they are finally ready. They're at that point where they are ready to be done with this. What are the steps that they should take?
Leave.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like a blanket, but if they're ready, Debbie, all the things that they need to do are already in place, right? People tend to be ready to leave at the height of an emotion. When somebody is really ready to leave, they're calm because everything is already in place at that point,
It's all
right? They've
orchestrated.
already
Yeah.
gone through the steps. It's like, this is going to happen, and I'm going to do this. They've started to get their money right. They've started to get the things that they need to be able to move on to the next step. They've already done all of that. When people leave a domestic, and that's why it usually takes 7 times, right? Because at every stage that you leave and come back, you've learned a lesson and you're not going to let go of that lesson. It's just that
Mhm.
the other things aren't in place. And
Right.
so the ability to completely walk away is not there yet. But when
Mm,
they're really ready to leave, there's nothing that the person can do shy of killing them is going to make them stay in that relationship because all the other steps are taken. Emotionally, they've gotten a hold of themselves. They've started to see who they are. They've started to recognize their talents. They started to recognize their value to the relationship and understand that they don't need the other person needs them. But more than that, they've made themselves the priority. When you make yourself a priority at that point, they don't really have to tell you anything. The only thing that you're going to do is try to avoid it becoming confrontational. Because most people get into a relationship, and as bad as the person's behavior is, they still remember the good of the person they met, right? And so they don't necessarily want to leave on bad terms. They just want them to let them leave.
Right.
Unfortunately, most abusers can't do that because the need for power and control comes from insecurity. You know what I mean? And so being insecure means that you have to be around because I have to be able to prove that I'm better than somebody, something. You know what
Right.
I mean? Which is why pet abuse is really, really big. They'll kill your dog. You know what I mean? Because you're close to your dog and you're showing the dog more love than them. So they feel insecure because, you're petting the dog all the time. You and that stupid dog, or you don't leave the cat alone. It becomes an issue. And so, in order to bring back the focus, bring back the attention, so I could continue to control, because I have to be the center of your world if I'm an
Right.
abuser, because I can't control you any other way. You know what I mean? But when they're at that point, when they're ready to leave, they can leave, but there are resources for them. If they call us, there's a lot of places. I mean, a lot of friends and family, if they tell them that they're ready to leave and they're mind and thought and speech pattern is different, because they're not going to say, oh, me going to talk to them. That is not the conversation they're going to have with you when they're ready to leave. They're going to be like, this is what I want to do. Here is how I want to do it, because the plan is already established at that point. But then they can always call us, you know what I mean? And if you don't want to call, Facebook, wcstx.org, or wherever you are, I sent Pinky a list of
Yes.
resources.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are
We
lists that you
posted
can
it.
call and you can talk to.
We posted it, and I'm going to put it in our files so that if anyone,
Well, we're
needs
gonna keep
reference,
posting it. We're gonna keep
yeah,
it
we'll
up on the
repost it.
page ever so often. We're gonna keep reposting it, maybe keeping it to the top too, so it can always be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it does have the 800 numbers nationally. So, um,
And shall you talk about physical abuse, but this applies to all types of abuse, emotional as well, abuse and other types of abuse,
spiritual.
spiritual abuse, definitely.
Explain what spiritual abuse is, please, Shelley.
The short version, when somebody uses the thing that you get your strength from outside of yourself against you.
So when your pastor
That's the
telling you all
very
kind of
short
stuff,
version.
is that what that is? When like if your pastor is like in that situation that you mentioned about the pastors taking the boys to Africa,
Mm-hmm.
or if you have your pastor telling you, how you should live your life.
Right. Without any basis to it. And it doesn't have anything to do with you. Anybody that uses what you find, because most people, they have a higher power, right? I'm Christian, so God is my higher power, right? And so if you start to say, well, God said don't do that, or the Bible said don't do this, or if you do that, you're going to hell. You're using where I get my strength from to make
Against me.
me weaker, or to make me not able to move forward, because now I'm not even worried about what you're going to say, because if my higher power is mad at me, then I definitely can't leave.
But
Right? So whether that's Rastafari, whether that's Buddha, whether that's Hindi, whether that's any of it, whatever they're
anytime.
going to use, right? Because that's where you get your strength from.
Mhm.
Some people find that probably find it really difficult to swallow.
I know,
I mean,
which is why it
so,
works.
yeah, to accept the fact that they're being abused, to accept that is probably a difficult thing to handle. Definitely, especially when this is what what you've believed in and what you've been guided by for so long. Pinky, what's
Yeah.
your take on that?
My take on it is that I the other side of the abuse is the control to keep you
Well, I'm talking about
suppressed.
the spiritual abuse.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, go ahead.
That they use it to keep you controlled, or to suppress you. I find that a lot in religion suppress a lot of women. They're used to suppress a lot of women and to keep us believing and thinking within this box. Anytime we go outside the box, that society, that church, and when we say society, church is a part of society. They're the one that define the rules. If we look at history and we look at how the Catholic Church had such a hold on society, that's why, and controlled so much. If we kept in this box, I call it the matrix, then they have all control over you. But it is so bad that we tend to, the church starts it, society, but then we tend to do it to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Women,
And
men.
a lot of it too comes from the fact that your pastor said, but you didn't pick up that Bible, or you didn't pick up that Quran, or you didn't pick up whatever,
And do the research for
and
yourself.
do the research yourself.
Yes.
And so then you're going based on what somebody has told you.
Yes.
And then you take it out of context. And you talked about that when we talked the other time, Shelley, that you take it out of context. You read one sentence, but you didn't read the whole chapter before. And then you use that. And
I
so,
have
go ahead.
I have an experience. Well, not my experience. Somebody came to me and told me this is about vaccination. Now, I'm not trying to sway anybody in any direction, whether to be or not to be vaccinated. That's everyone's choice. I believe in the right to choose. It's up to them. But I had an individual actually told me that her decision to not be vaccinated is because the priest or pastor said not to do it. I'm like, you're not going to resort or figure out for yourself because somebody's telling you not to do it. So it goes
And
back to
and that was actually what made me walk away from the church last year, because it was a very big political year. We know that, right? But the priests all over the place, because I used to watch a lot of church on TV, was using the pulpit to promote their agenda, who you should vote for, who you shouldn't vote for presidency, and the Bible, and you're supposed to always separate religion and state, right? And
correct.
there is no place in the Bible that'll tell you we're supposed to be making these decisions. The Bible actually say you respect the people in authority. But we
Well,
don't take things out of context all the time because we don't read and understand the Bible, like Shirley said, but it's the fact. We don't read and understand things for ourselves. So we just say, oh, the Bible said it's like spare the child and spare the rod and whip the child, right?
Mhm.
It got religions, and I don't want to say specifically which religions, that'll use that context to beat their wife. That same scripture to beat the. So we have these things, and I always tell people, well, think for yourself, because the Bible clearly said women can't wear jewelry and shouldn't wear pants, but we just still do it as women, right? So why do we choose to take this part of the Bible and say, this is what the Bible said, we're following this to the T, but then we don't take this part of the Bible? And then when we look at religion as a whole, we could see some religions, they don't wear pants, or they're forbidden to do certain things, and they're considered Christians. I always tell people Mormons is Christians, and Baptist is Christian. So when you hear the context Christian, but don't say, oh, you're a Christian. What does that mean to you? For me, it means I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. What I might mean to Shelley, what I might mean to Debbie, might be two different things, three different things, but I know what it means to me. And I think that's what we should get to. What does it mean to you? And I think these are all parts of us not being in abusive situations. We might say, oh, we get religion. These are all things. If we don't come to grips with who we are and what we truly believe, then we fall for all kind of things. We become prey for all kind of things. And then our children become prey, because you see in these church, these people following these pastors, and then they learn the children follow these pastors and doing all these kind of things.
Well, Pinky, to what you said about that earlier, televangelism and politics, that's big business.
Oh, yes,
There's
it
money in
is.
that. There's money in that. That is influenced by money at the end of the day. So that's really what that
And that's
is.
their power, right?
It has nothing to do with Christianity. Absolutely nothing.
Right.
So,
Yep.
It has to do with the root of all evil.
root of all kinds of evil, all
Which all
kinds.
comes down to money.
Yeah.
Because I used to believe, money is the root of all evil. And I was like, then I read the Bible, it says money is the root of all kinds.
Kinds of evil.
Because then
It
we
still comes down
thinking to
money.
have money was a sin, to be rich was bad. This is how the mindset of a young Christian, this is what I'm saying. Like, we have to be, when I was 21 and in Christian, I'm not the same person today. But I used to think, to have money is bad. But then I used to be seeing pastors that got a lot of money and
Confused,
driving
right?
nice cars. And I was like, well, how come they could live life and drive nice cars and I have to embrace poverty? And poverty is the honorable way to go in the wall. Like, why is that?
Well, because a
Yeah.
lot of times we mix up, to go back to what Louis was asking about. One of the ways that spiritual abuse usually, right? I mean, because in order for you to get somebody that's in an abusive relationship that has all the aspects of abuse, right? And usually, if somebody is in an abusive where spiritual abuse is part of it, Louis, it is compounded, right? Because your place to go for you to get stronger is also included in the fact that they can talk down to you because they're talking down to you using whatever scripture or belief document that you have, right? And when it goes from the emotional and the verbal, the psychological, the financial, because you can't spend any money, it goes to the isolation. You can't talk to certain people. You can't wear certain things. You can't do certain things. You
You
can't
can't
go
friend
certain
certain
places.
people.
You can't all those can'ts, right? The way for me, what I've learned to do is to start asking them questions about what they believe, right? And so, because if you have a relationship, because that's really what spirituality is about, your
Right.
relationship with your higher power, not your relationship with the documentation,
Right.
nor with the establishment that is put there to serve you. And they don't push that part of it. The service part,
Right.
they're supposed to take care of you. They want you to take care of them, because a lot of times it's misconstrued in what is happening. And so, because from the crusades come out, there's nearly no war that didn't have a religious base, right? Because it literally is all about, like you said, it is all about the financial. But the truth of the matter is, when you start to have a relationship, then it changes everything, because you understand who you are to who your creator is, or who your higher power is. And once that starts to make sense, everything else starts to drop off, because you know at that point that your creator doesn't want you hurt. So all of a sudden, it put everything else in perspective. So once that's taken care of, leaving also becomes very easy at that point. You know what I mean? Just like when you understand, I'm making all the money, but I give him all the money because I'm supposed to give him the money because he's supposed to be the provider. You realize that you're doing all the budgeting, you have all the financial pro. You know what I mean? He doesn't really have it. Then all the you need me starts to no longer have the same effect, because it's like, wait, no, no, I don't really need you. I can manage this. I can make $1 out of 15 cents, because when you vex with me, you ain't giving me no money. I still have to feed my children. All of a sudden, oh, wait a second, I'm really an accountant. I just didn't recognize it, right? I know how to manage the house. I know how to make sure that everybody is fed, including your behind. You know what I mean? And then you start to see, okay, wait. All of this stuff is lies. And once you start to recognize the lies, because you're starting to see yourself and the value of yourself,
So,
then all of a sudden leaving becomes easier to do. But that takes time. You know what I mean? There's a lot of unlearning that has to be done. And especially for us to grow up. That's why recognizing your weaknesses, or what you perceive as your weaknesses, because some things that you think are your weaknesses are other people's opinions of you. It's not the truth. They
Right.
are upset with you because you are better at something than they are. So the way to stop you from doing it is to give you negative opinions of yourself, right? And one, training, conditioning. You tell somebody something 7 times, after a while, they start to believe that nonsense. You know what I
right.
mean? So that's why positive affirmations and positive name affirmations are amazing things, because you get to talk to yourself. Physically, if you hear something positive, your physical structure, your muscle tissue, all of that gets stronger. But more people talk negative to you, your body breaks down. You get stressed out, hypertension, diabetes, end-stage renal disease, heart attack, all the rest of it, your
But you
immune
know what
system
I've learned
depletes.
too, Shelley? When people
Mhm.
talking to you negative and people, you can actually feel it.
Of course, because it's real. It breaks down your physical body. So imagine being in a house where you can't get away from the negative all the time, right? And even if it's not directed towards you, this is how little people get affected. They're hearing the negative
That's
passing
if you care
between the
about that
parents.
individual, you allow that, right?
Say again?
That's because you care about that person that it hurts. Somebody you don't care about.
No,
Exactly.
but it
Exactly.
does. It does. We
But
like I
Shelly
said,
talked about that earlier, though. Shelly said,
No, but
unless you.
what
it
Louis is
doesn't.
saying, what
Go
Louis is
ahead, Shelley,
saying is
finish.
that what Louis is saying is that if the person you care about is the one saying it, it has more of an effect, because
It
if
Right.
has
somebody
more of
who
an
you
effect.
don't care about says it, it has an effect in the atmosphere. It doesn't affect you the same way.
You.
It
Okay.
doesn't affect you the
The
same, like she
same
says.
way,
It has
right?
a lesser effect, but nonetheless, it
Residual,
does have an effect.
Right.
It does. We
especially if it's a weakness for you.
we hear a lot of things and we accept them like sticks and stones to break my bones. We used to say that on the playground. That is total crap. That is total crap, and
Yes,
we should
total
never say
crap.
that no more. It do affect us, and
Total
it
crap.
affects us terribly. You know. Not because something sounds good and we hear it and and everybody repeating it. That don't mean it's true. And that one is not true.
True. Um, quick
Yeah,
again,
haters
because
will
we're
hate.
coming up. Wanted to just say, have you tell people, once you're out of the situation, the relationship, whatever was causing this abuse, what are tools that people should utilize to rebound?
Find a place within your time. I was talking about this in my family caregivers group last night. Pay yourself, right? Right to the top of your list should be to pay yourself, whether that be in time or money, because self-care is important. It also helps you to remember the value of who you are. You don't get into another abusive relationship if you start to pay attention to who you are, because when your gut starts to tell you something ain't right and you recognize your value, you don't do it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's the way you stay out. Predators are always going to prey. A victim never volunteers, right? A victim never volunteers to be a victim. But when you start to not pay attention to your own self, it becomes very easy to get back into it, right? So the things that you start to do is make sure you can maintain who you are. You have to get to know you. That may mean recognizing that the person who you are now at 45 and you've just gotten out of a relationship is the 21-year-old that got into the relationship, and she has to grow up or
Right.
he has to grow up, which
Right.
means he has to become responsible for his own actions. She has to become responsible for her own actions that they didn't get a chance to do because they were more responsible for everybody
Fine,
else,
yes.
right? Start to make time for yourself because that helps you. The place to win in life and in relationships is in your head. If in your head you're in a good relationship with yourself, right? And this is going to sound very, very weird, but have business meetings with you. You understand? Talk to yourself. Yes, answer yourself. No, it doesn't make you crazy. If you're talking to yourself, nobody should be minding your business anyway. You know what I mean? Have the conversation with yourself so that you know, because sometimes you have to remind yourself of your own strengths because nobody else knows your story.
You
Nobody
so
knows the
right,
thoughts that
Shelly.
are
You
in
so
your
right.
head. They don't know. You're alone in your head all the time. You know what I mean? Being alone and being lonely is two different things. Don't let loneliness put you in a position where you start to forget who you are again. It's not okay. And if you're going to stay out, you're going to do that, which means now your financial management is going to change, your time management is going to change, the way you choose your friends is going to change, the way you approach business is going to change, the way you approach people is going to change because the way you approach yourself has changed. And that's how you stay out.
Mm.
And Shelly, I like how you said the business aspect because in a business, we look at the pros and the cons. We look at what works, we look at what don't work. We have a tendency to believe that we cannot look at the negative things in our life. We have to look at both. We hear about the pros list and the cons list. If the con list is longer than the pro list, then you gotta let go of the situation. This is what we're talking about. You have to take you have to be analytical. But I want to add to what you said. I really believe that we need to have some form of a spiritual base, an individual relationship with God. Now, I'm not against the church because the church may be the bridge in which you need, right? But you have to find individuality in there. You cannot become a follower. You have to be independent. You have to know your Bible. You have to take time and read your Bible and understand it for yourself, or whatever book you choose or what religion you choose. You need to learn to have an individual relationship between you and God and not between you, God, and man. So when you have a problem, and the first problem you have is, oh, I got to run to the pastor so he could pray for me. You have to learn to pray for yourself. Oh, I need to go to the pastor because I need help. You need to learn to stand up on your own 2 feet. It's okay to seek help. I'm not saying don't seek help because, again, this may be the bridge in which you need. These may be the tools in which you need to get from here to there. But do not become dependent on other people. If you left a situation where you were dependent and abused, do not become dependent again on any systems or anyone, because then again, we even could become dependent on our children. And that is something we have to be
Different
careful
story
of.
for a different.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
you
Wait,
know,
wait. Let me because we gotta wrap up. Marcelino said, should counseling be
Yes,
mandatory once you're out of a relationship?
I
Should it be
think
mandatory?
Hmm.
Counseling doesn't work if you don't want counseling,
Right.
right.
right? So I wouldn't say it would be mandatory. I would say it would be helpful. If you can find a support group, it doesn't necessarily have to look like counseling, but if you can find a way to gain information, read stuff if you don't want, because a lot of people don't want other people to know what they've been through, right? And so
Mhm.
find other ways to do it. Counseling is helpful, but I don't know that mandatory is the word that I would use. It
Mhm.
just that it would be beneficial.
Okay. Okay. Tarek, I'm not ignoring you, but we are wrapping this up and we will talk. Shelly, he wants to speak to you as well. That's my cousin who lives in New York, my second cousin. Um,
Okay.
um, for someone else that he knows. And but again, we are not, yes, it's towards the end of the domestic violence awareness, but we this is obviously something that touches a lot of us and how we show up in the world. And not only that, if we have children, how it
Mm.
affects children as well and how they show up in the world. So this is definitely something that we want to talk about again in the near future. And I know you're a very busy person, but we will we will be reaching out to you to talk again. If anybody viewing this wants us to talk about a certain topic when it comes to domestic violence or mental health awareness or whatever, definitely reach out to us so that we can formulate a discussion that we can talk about in the upcoming months. But I definitely, every time you come on, like I learn something else, then I'm like, wow, or I have like an aha moment. So I really appreciate the information that you give because you definitely have a wealth of knowledge. Um, and
I love it. I'd be like, let me just give it all over to Shelly.
I know it's
Really?
supposed to be a discussion, but I mean, you deal with this. You've been doing this for almost 30 years. So, we
Good
really,
stuff.
really appreciate
Good
the
stuff.
wealth of knowledge that you have. And I know the viewers have enjoyed it as well. I want to thank, of course, everybody who's been watching, not just on the Facebook Live, but on YouTube. And again, for those in our Facebook group, don't forget to go over and subscribe because again, anything can happen on Facebook. And we might not be able to be on the Facebook Live, so at least we could be on the YouTube platform. So definitely, please go over there and subscribe. Invite your friends and family into the group, as well as to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I just want to thank everybody who's been commenting. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of it. Someone's saying part two, part three. This was actually part two. But we will definitely revisit conversations because
Tariq says you get a standing ovation, Shelly. Tariq did.
Oh,
Good stuff.
thank
Good stuff.
you.
Look
so
at that. Look at that.
yes. And I
Thank you.
and
I
I think it's
appreciate that.
vital. Again, we keep talking about creating a healthier community. We don't realize how much of this stuff really affects the way that we show up in this world. So the more knowledge you have, the better you are to go out in this world, to be an example for your children or for those people that you mentor or you come in contact with. You might go to work with someone and you've learned something that you can impart on them. So thank you, thank you, thank you a million times for coming on. So I'll be reaching out to you again.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's fine.
See you next month sometime.
No problem. No
and
Definitely,
problem. And
definitely.
I want to thank you all too for at least providing the space for a lot of people. All day they're doing something, and it's awesome that you all are so open with your conversations. I mean, y'all are amazing set of people. It makes life easier knowing that other people are here having the same conversations
Yeah.
about the same things and your different perspectives. By the way, y'all personalities together is absolutely amazing. It is so much fun. I think y'all are absolutely amazing.
Really?
I
wait,
love it. I love it. I
We'd
love
have
it. I
been
love it.
fighting, Shelly. We'd have been fighting.
What about when we're in the back
But the love
Yeah,
is
I was
the
at
love
it.
is real. The love is real, right?
The
And
love is real, but
even though the personalities are distinctly different, they
Very
come
much so.
together well and they make for a wonderful. They make for a wonderful combination because everybody can see themselves in each of you, which makes this an amazing group of people. And then I
Thank
guess when you
you.
add Lucian, then it turns into something else again. And that in itself, you don't understand how that lesson, because okay, so I'm gonna make this really short because I know we gotta go. But the conflict resolution between you all is a great way for other people to see how they can not be abusive, be fun, be understanding, and still get the point across just by your interactions with each other. And that is a lesson that a lot of people don't get. And so I really appreciate the fact that y'all can do that. Y'all are
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
actually
you.
on camera, but off cameras are a different story.
And that is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Thank you, Shelly.
You
I
know,
just
I
want
you know I always say gonna be on my best behavior, and then it'll go downhill quick.
we talk about how cutting me off and look how she cut me off. So let me finish. Let me
And I
finish.
told you it would
Let
happen.
me
I told you.
finish. So anyway, thank you very much, Shelly. Definitely. Thanks to the viewers, both Facebook and YouTube. I just want to mention really quick. I know we talk about DMV, domestic violence, but I also want to mention this is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we definitely want to give a shout out to those folks for the survivors as well. That's a very important issue as well. So
Yes.
thanks once again, Shelly. Of course, Debbie, Pinky, my sisters, of course. Want to wish everyone good things, great things, beautiful things.
Exactly. And everybody, please be safe. Be well. Have a great week.
That's Bruce, also a part of our
Yes.
debutante.
Yes. He was in Debutante Ball with us too. um,
Bruce.
Debutante reunion. I want y'all to be safe. We will be back here again next week, Thursday. And I guess that will be our first show for November. We will be having a Thanksgiving this year and Christmas this year. So we'll see what drinks pop up this year. But again, be safe.
I got
Be
drink
well.
tea. I got drink tea.
Yeah,
Really.
right.
Okay.
Last night I had this white wine. I was like, wow, this is a really nice white wine with some
Exactly. We
tea.
ain't gonna be drinking no tea. But
Spiked tea, probably.
take
Spiked
care.
iced tea.
Take care. Be well, and we will see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Good night,
Ciao.
everyone.
Good night.
Take care.